Hello and welcome to the Community Voice. I'm Fara Sax. I have the privilege today with me, my guest, Michael Leo. He is a visionary leader for the Swerdlow Group. He's very much into strategic growth and has been an expert for the last 40 years in housing policy and finance. And he's my guest today, and we're going to break it all down on what's going on in our beautiful city of Miami. Welcome so much for being with me, Michael.
Thank you very much, Farah. I'm happy to be here.
And your career, let's start. Where'd you grow up? Tell me about your background, why you decided to get into the market and the business of what you're doing and growing cities.
Well, I'm from Hawaii originally. I was born there, but before my first birthday, my father, who was a veteran of the Korean War, moved to the mainland, and I lived the first 10 years of my life in places like Missouri, Mill Creek, Missouri, and Cleveland, Ohio.
What's it like to be, it's almost like you're a fish out of water,
yeah,
culturally.
Yeah, and by the time I got back to Hawaii, I was a fish out of water. It was a totally different culture, and but I loved it, and I still think of it as home, and it has a lot of similarities to South Florida. It's diverse. The weather, of course, is warm, but it is different. And but it does have a housing crisis too, and perhaps in my early years, because I was involved in government policy as I just graduated from law school, etc. Housing was a top interest of mine, and it's held through all of those years. From my time as a legislator in the state legislature to my first position in federal government, which was the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And I was the second in command of what is now called rural development, which back then was called small community and rural development, and included agencies like the old Farmers Home Administration, which of course dealt with housing in rural America. I remember a funny story though that is related to Florida. I took a trip down here unbeknownst to the local staff, and I went all the way down to Homestead, and they had a small office there. And I walked through the door, and there was a Farmers Home Administration employee, and I knocked on the door, and I could hear somebody snoring. I knocked again. The snoring got louder. And when the fellow finally woke up, he had no idea who I was. And he said, "Who are you? Why are you coming down here? You know, get out of my office." I said, "Well, by the way, I'm the deputy undersecretary." And he said, "You're who?" I said, "Yeah, here's my identification." He says, "Oh, my." And ironically, he was actually reading a memo that I had signed that went out to all of the field offices. So that was hilarious. But it's also typical to some extent of, when government gets too large, right? It gets hard to stay in touch, and hard for people to really understand what their mission is. But anyway, just a funny story.
That's a cute story.
Yeah,
that is a cute story.
Yeah.
And your career has illustrious 4 decades. That's a long time to be doing something like that with experience in both the public and the private sector.
Yes.
And you've seen the landscape of many different places that you've worked, the affordable housing. And that seems like the million-dollar question, and how it's evolved over the years, particularly now it's a spot in Miami, how we deal with that. And what do you see as the challenges, even now and in the future? Because I think we could probably talk a whole episode on the challenges of moving forward during this time of affordable housing.
Well, clearly land is an issue in Miami-Dade County. We have the Everglades on one side of us, and we have the ocean on the other side of us. And, God isn't making much more land as we move through the world of time. So we have to be creative, and we have to make compromises to understand that while we certainly appreciate and love the open spaces and the greenery, and we want to conserve and preserve that which makes our community unique, and certainly the landscape and the water is all part of that. People also need to live in housing that is decent, safe, and at a standard where we can be proud to say that we live in a community where we can house all of our people of all incomes, of all ages. Government has to be a partner in that, because government is one of the biggest landowners in any large metro jurisdiction, both state, local, and federal. And they have to be willing to be creative and work with the private sector to make that happen. It's challenging. It's very, very challenging, but it can be done. It can be done. It's a great segue to some of the projects that the Swerdlow Group that I work for is involved in.
So tell me a little bit more about that, especially let's start with Sawyer's Walk. Amazing. I mean, it's developed right in the middle of the Liberty Square project and the Sawyer Walk. It's a mixed development.
Right. It builds on the model that started with Liberty Square. It's an overtown, a traditionally low-income neighborhood, a lot of disinvestment over the years, but also it happens to be a stone's throw from One World Center, with all of the high-end shops and high-end supercharged rental and condominium units. But it fits in because you wouldn't know that it was the largest affordable senior project, 578 units completed in the United States in the last 20 years, and that it also incorporates 350,000 square feet of commercial and retail space, of which all except 4,000 square feet is leased up, and includes, and this is what makes us different from a lot of other mixed-use developers. Michael Swerdlow and his main partner, Stephen Garchik, have a lot of experience in working in the retail space and working with retailers that cater to those of modest incomes. So our retail clients, our retail tenants, are not the Jimmy Choos of the world, with all respect to Jimmy Choo, or the David Yurmans of the world. They are Target, Aldi's, Ross Dress for Less, Five Below, and Burlington. All retail outlets that cater and have services and products that most everyone can afford. And because our units, our 578 units are...
I think we have a couple of pictures of them as well.
Are for seniors and those of modest incomes. It's a great mix. It's also near transit. It's within a few minutes of Metro Rail, a Brightline, Tri-Rail. You have a Publix across the street on 2nd Avenue. So it is a great connector also of the Overtown community, because as we all know, back in the day when they built I-95, it went right through that neighborhood, disrupted the community, and we're seeing that with the opening of Target a few weeks ago, people from on the west of I-95 are coming back into the area because the shopping is there. It's a great shopping.
Absolutely. But did you get some pushback saying a project in Liberty City? with housing and this mix with shopping experience. What was that? What was that like when you started the project?
It was very positive. It was generally positive because of the kind of retail that we were going to have.
Accessible,
and because the units are affordable, meaning anywhere from actually 0 up to 80% of area median income. And 80% of area median income for a single person, that's $63,000 a year. At 60% of AMI for a single person, that's $47,000 a year. And if you go below that, obviously the numbers drop. So it's a mix of incomes, but certainly we're not talking about folks who make, six figures, et cetera. So the fact that we were providing housing to that income group, as well as retail opportunities for that have services and products that are within reach of those folks, we have not had a lot of pushback. And we partnered with the city's community redevelopment agency from that area, the Southeast Overtown Park West Community Redevelopment Agency, which is staffed by and led by the city commissioners who are from that area. So from day one, we had this public-private partnership to address what may have been and could have been concerns about displacement. Well, the other thing is that we didn't displace anyone.
Absolutely.
It was a vacant lot. So that helped.
I think it brings a lot of energy to an area.
Absolutely.
And talk about some of the strategies that you did employ to ensure that these projects met with the community needs as well as the financial goals.
Sure. Well, going back in my role when I was the Director of Public Housing and Community Development for the county, the challenging part of managing the affordable housing stock for Miami-Dade County, which is the sixth largest housing agency in the United States and the largest in Florida, is that most of its public housing, which is federally supported, unfortunately, is in terrible shape. The federal government makes no bones about it. They have publicly stated we don't have the money available, regardless of who's in the White House, to repair all of the public housing in the United States to the level that we would want. Hence, we're going to come up with programs that hopefully will incentivize the private sector to do redevelopment projects such as that in Liberty Square, such as what is going on across from the Marlins Stadium, what's going on right out here over your studio in South Miami.
You were like amazed. You said, well, I was involved with this place 2 years ago.
That's right.
And it grows up.
Yeah, and that model of public-private partnership and combining resources from the federal government, from local government, both city and county and the state, and then also being able to bring in private sector financing and having the wherewithal to move the project along quickly, that's the key. And you have to have developers who can do that. Sawyer's Walk, as large as it is, took approximately 45 years. Any other developer, I think, except for one or two, may have taken, I don't know, they maybe would not have finished it. There are projects right now, unfortunately, that because of developers not having the kind of strength that Swerdlow has, or say the related group and Mr. Perez and Albert Milo, they have projects that have not been able to get out of the ground and have laid fallow for over 8 years.
Let's talk about that. The rapid speed that the Swerdlow Group makes decisions, moves on them, and the team behind that, because you're all very seasoned with hundreds of years experience between you. Walk me through that. How does it happen? How does the boardroom look?
The boardroom looks a lot like this.
Well, you're welcome to join me.
It's small. We're not ostentatious. We like to joke when people come to our offices, how do you like it? We have no windows. There are only about 6 of us that actually make the decisions, manage the planning, manage the project. Now, obviously, we hire then general contractors who hire subcontractors. We hire architects and design folks. But in terms of the actual group that develops and manages the project, it's about 6 of us. And Michael Swerdlow and Stephen Garchick and Albin are the 3 that are the key partners. And then there's myself and a few other folks. Nick Swerdlow, who is Michael Swerdlow's son. That's the core group that makes the decisions. And we can do it quickly because we don't have a lot of bureaucracy.
Right.
And and time is money.
Time is money. And it's very interesting because it must be very different from some of your other careers and other jobs where it was governmental and it's a little slower, should we say?
Oh, yes. And both, in my background, both private and public sectors. I've worked for big banks, Bank of America, Federal Home Loan Bank of Chicago, and then in government, obviously. I've worked in various federal positions. We talked about the USDA position, and I was also Assistant Secretary for Public and Indian Housing, which was in charge of all public and Indian housing in the United States. And it's different. Working in large organizations, sometimes they're needed because they may be regional or national in scope. Mm-hmm. But it really takes my belief, and which is one reason why I ended up working with the Swerdlow Group, is that the flatter the organization, the better. In other words, fewer layers in between the chain of command with the top person or people who make those decisions. That's key. So
it must be very exciting.
It is exciting, very exciting, all along the way.
Let's talk about another project.
Yes.
Block 55.
Well, Block 55, Sawyer's Walk. We saw some of the pictures there. We talked about the size. On the residential side, we actually are still leasing up a number of those 578 units.
And here we have more pictures of the shopping.
Yes.
In the project. And then, I love it. Slow it down. Target.
Yeah.
Ross.
Yeah.
Burlington.
And if we keep scrolling, we'll take a look at the actual units. And we would, folks are interested, they should call us. I think there's a number that they'll be able to see on the scrolling on the bottom of the screen, 305-433-4376. We're actually, we have a lot of 2-bedroom units that we would like to fill up. The rents range from $1,333 to $1,844. To facilitate that lease up, we're giving a discount of first month's rent will be for free, and we'll help folks move if they need moving help also.
And this is all about the affordable housing.
Yes.
So I appreciate that. Let's transition to the Little River project.
Yes.
It's set to be a transformative development. So tell me a little bit about the 7,500 new housing units. That's a lot. And a new tri-rail station.
That's right. It's going to transform the community. But first, I want to stress that the current residents on the public housing properties that are impacted, and this is, if folks know the area, it's bounded on the west by Northwest 7th Street and on the east by Northeast 2nd Avenue. Not Northwest 7th Avenue, I'm sorry, and Northeast 2nd Avenue. And then on the north by 75th Street and on the south by 71st Street. It's about 80 acres in total area that will be impacting, but all of the residents in the public housing that are going to be impacted are guaranteed by law, by the program that we are doing this redevelopment project on, called the Rental Assistance Demonstration Program. They are guaranteed a unit of an appropriate size at the same rent that they're paying now in this new project. Now, there are 314 of those families that are there right now. Excuse me, there are 314 public housing units and about 200 or so actual occupied units. So we'll be responsible for making sure, first of all, that all of those 314 units are going to be replaced one for one in the new project. And out of 7,500 units, that's certainly easy to do. And all of those families will be guaranteed a unit of the appropriate size, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms. We'll take care of that. Or studios if there's a single person or a 1 bedroom in the new project. Very exciting. At our expense, you mentioned a train station. Yes, we have committed, and it's already now part of the long-range transportation plan for the county, formally, a tri-rail station right in the middle of the project, $30 million. And I think we're the only private developer that has committed to build a commuter train station so far in the county. So that's exciting, and it's going to be affordable. And that train will open up tremendous job opportunities because that train connects all the way to the central station where you have Brightline, Metro Rail, et cetera. And from there, of course, and that's like a 10-minute ride on the train. And from there, they can connect to all of the employment areas in downtown Miami, Miami Beach, what have you, even the airport. So
that's
it's great.
So important for folks to be able to get to a job.
Exactly.
If they don't have cars, they have public transportation.
Exactly.
So you're really supporting a community in so many ways.
Yes, and we're going to be anchored by again. We're going to revitalize the community with retail that will have services and products and produce, food, that is going to be accessible and affordable for that community. So we're very excited about it. We're in the final stages of finishing up the lease and the development agreement with the county. And we have our fingers crossed that we'll be able to get this approved by the full Board of County Commissioners and the mayor by January.
That's wonderful.
So again,
fingers
we'll
crossed.
see what
I'm
happens.
crossing for you, and my toes, and my hands, and my eyes.
Thank you.
What is it like for you as a human being for people to really see that you care about them? For a community that's probably been underserved.
Yep.
And that you come in and we care about you. We care about the living world that you are going to spend probably 85%, 70%, whatever other than work in this environment. What has been some of the feedback from the community members?
Well, it's great whenever I run into people, and it's quite often it happens. Someone will come up and say, "Oh, Mr. Liu, do you remember me? I was so-and-so at the square." And most of the time I will recognize that person. And it's always great to hear when they say, "Thank you very much. Life is better." Not perfect, but it is better.
Is any of our lives perfect, right?
Right. And it does mean a lot. And I know it means a lot, too, to the folks that I work with Michael Swerdlow and Stephen Garchick. I mean, out of our conversations, half the time, at least half the time, if not more, the conversation includes, the issues about, what will this mean for the people who are going to live in the units? If we don't include washer and dryers, and we only include a laundry room on, at the end of the floor. Is that something that we want to do? And at the end of the day, and we actually had this conversations for Sawyer's Walk, we changed our plans, and we decided that we were going to put washer dryers in every single unit, instead of building a community washrooms on every floor. We talk about, well, how do we make the elevators more accessible? We have probably the biggest pool that you'll ever see in any project, residential apartment project, at Sawyer's Walk, because Michael Swerdlow wanted to make sure that the seniors who are going to live there were going to have a good time. So we have a huge pool and a huge jacuzzi, and you just don't see that in a lot of affordable projects in Miami-Dade or anywhere in the country. But it was because of that sense of how will the people who live there, how will their lives be if not transformed, how will their lives be better? And
that's what it's all about. And it seems like that the Swerdlow Group has that heart for that, to recognize the nuances of what's needed. That
project was originally going to be 100% market rate, but when the team
say that again?
was going to be 100% market rate.
Well, explain that.
In other words, it was going to be luxury rentals, like all the other stuff, within a quarter mile of that area.
What changed?
Looking into what the affordable programs were, and talking to the community redevelopment agency of the city, and understanding, what they wanted to have happen, because they owned the land originally. Michael changed his mind and said, you know what? I may not know all of this as much as I know other kinds of projects, but I like what we can do for the people here. So they made a 180-degree pivot and decided to build an affordable project. And it will be a great success. Yeah.
When you wake up in the morning, what excites you, Michael, about the work that you're doing?
Well, we have such a variety of things that we're doing. We also just completed working with the county on an agreement, and there's a few other things that we have to do, but it was approved by the Board of County Commissioners to bring a Costco down to South Miami-Dade in the Cutler Bay area. Costco hasn't been there, and it'll bring, again, an affordable retailer along with very cheap gas, which is important for folks down there because of how far they have to travel for work and other reasons. And that kind of variety of what we're doing is very interesting. We're looking at partnering with, I can't mention it right now, but we're partnering with a large religious organization to build 400 units and a career academy school to teach kids, how to work in real jobs without necessarily having to go to college. And that's very exciting. So doing all of these different projects and being strategic about it, my title, Chief Strategy Officer.
What is that anyway? What do you do actually all day long? You sit in a room, a small boardroom like this with 6 other guys?
Folks say, what does the Chief Strategy Officer do? But you guess? No. But you do have to be strategic. You have to be strategic in thinking about the resources that you have, the impact you're going to make on the community, and is it in line with what how to do things. There's some projects that we haven't done just because it wasn't right for us. It didn't fit our backgrounds, our expertise. And in some cases, we didn't know who the other players were going to be. So it's important.
It's important to be true to the brand.
Right.
In the couple seconds we have left, something that you want to talk about that we haven't yet.
I think we've touched on so many great things, but again, the key is land, also cost, labor, and insurance. Those are two key factors that we have to continue to do better in. And finally, we need leadership on both the private but also in the public sectors that understands that government can be its own worst enemy. So let's cut through the bureaucracy and understand that, yes, time is money. And the more it costs, the more it's going to cost the ultimate consumer. It's been wonderful.
Michael Leo, thank you so much for being here with me today. And you make the world of Miami and your team at Swerdlow Group a much better place.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you for joining me. I'm Fara Sax, and this has been The Community Voice. Have a great day.